Hello there, my name's Joe and welcome to my channel. In this video we're going to take a look at the bilbox PromptGeek photo prompt node. Now this is a node that we can use to help us compile prompts for photorealistic images. So what I thought we'd do is we'll start off as usual by looking at how we install this package, and we'll take a quick look at the documentation, and then I'll run you through my workflow and we'll generate an image using the PromptGeek photo prompt. To install the bilbox custom nodes is very simple. All we need to do, as usual, we go across to ComfyUI Manager, we'll select Install Custom Nodes, and then in the search box I'm just going to type Bilbo, B-I-L-B-O, press return, and here we see the bilbox ComfyUI custom nodes. So we would do an install of that and restart ComfyUI. But while we're here, let's just if you click here on the link, this will take you to the author's GitHub page. The author here is Syllebra. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but anyway, let's now have a quick look also at the GitHub page for this set of nodes. So we're now at the GitHub page for Syllebra, perhaps it's pronounced, and we're on the bilbox ComfyUI page. Now if we scroll down here, we'll see that there's 3 nodes being demonstrated here. So if I just scroll down, first of all we've got the bilbox PromptGeek photo prompt. Some details on this which we're going to look at in a bit more detail in a moment. And if we come down a little bit further, we have 2 other nodes that are available to us once we've installed this package. We have this vignette effect node, which we can use by loading an image, calling up the post-processing vignette effect node, and then adding a preview or a save file. And basically we can, by changing these settings here, we can add a vignette to a image. Usually this would be for a photorealistic style image. And down here we also have a similar thing, but for adding or for changing the color LUTs to an image. I'm not going to go into these because I don't have a lot of time. However, they're certainly worth looking at. So let's go back now to the PromptGeek photo prompt. So this example here is just showing you some of basically how this thing works. What you're doing is you're building a prompt to generate usually a photorealistic style of image. You'll put in your basic prompts of the details of what it is you want. Yeah, beautiful lady standing on the beach, blah 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 blah. And then we have this second box down here where we can add details of the background that we wish to add into the prompt. And there's a number of drop downs here where we can change the settings that we might have used: camera settings, filter settings, lighting settings, the sort of things a photographer would use. And each of these is a drop down, and we can make various selections, and we'll have a look at that. I do notice here there's a negative box, which I don't quite understand how this bit is working. I'll show you what I've done in my workflow in a moment. But if we look down here, we have a copy of a workflow. Now, if I just click into that, get a slightly better view. So what we can see from here, so we've got the photo prompt node here, and we can see that there are 2 connections running to the 2 text prompts. That didn't quite make sense to me. And again, as I say, I'll show you what I've done, because by having both of these, so this one here, I hope you can see this, the positive prompt text G as it's called there, is running up to the text input on that would be your positive prompt, and the negative prompt text G is running to your next prompt, which would be your negative prompt. Now that's happening. Where do you input your negative prompt? So I didn't quite get this, and I'm not, either this is not quite right as an example, or I've misunderstood it. So I'll show you what I've done to get the results that I wanted to do. So I think that's about as much as I can use on this documentation. So let's go back to my workflow and I'll run you through what I have done. So let's take a look at this workflow. It's a very simple one. So the yellow nodes are just a default text to image workflow, which you can easily get by clicking on load default. So if I just run through quickly what I've done, I'm using the Dreamshaper XL Checkpoint model. It's one of my favorites. I've got the 2 prompts here. You can see here that I've changed this one slightly. So by right-clicking on it, if you come down your options, you can see here, you will either have convert input to widget or convert widget to input. So I've changed this first prompt, which it would be my positive prompt, so that I've got an input, and that will work with this node, which we'll look at in a moment. My second prompt I've just left as is, and that is going to be my negative prompt. You can see here that I've added in earrings, ear studs, and that's just because I wanted to test that my negative prompt was working on the image that I was generating, because I wasn't quite sure, because as I mentioned earlier, how I saw that diagram set up didn't seem to work for me. I couldn't see how the negative prompt worked. Anyway, moving on, we've got a standard default case sampler. I'm just using a seed of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fixed seed. As I'm using Dreamshaper XL model, I'm just using 8 steps. And normally with this model, I would just use a CFG of 2. I have bumped it up a bit to 2.6, and that was for me to get this negative prompt to work. I found it didn't work on. I usually would do just CFG2 on a Dreamshaper XL model as my start point. Anyway, so sampler DPM++ SDE with the Keras scheduler, denoise on 1, and my image size is 768 by 1024, and then we've just got a batch of 1. Okay, we've got a VAE decode, and I'm using a save image. As you might, to be honest, you might be better off by having a preview image here, because if you want to play around with these settings and see what works and doesn't work for you, it's probably easier to use preview, but I'm just using save because I'm lazy. So these are the default nodes, which you can tell because they've got this little badge here, which is a fox's head. I used to think that was a tulip. That's what it looked like to me, because I've got not so good eyesight, but it's a fox's head apparently. So yep, so yellow default. Let's now look at the bilbox or bilbox node that we've added. So we've already installed the nodes, and I just called up the photo prompt. And to do that, all I did was I just double left clicked and I just typed in Bilbo, and I got here, I can see the 3 nodes that come with this package. And so I called up the PromptGeek photo prompt node. What I've done just for demonstration purposes, I've added it twice, just so you can see what this looks like before it's been configured. And this is the one that I'm actually using. So what you get when you add it to your workflow, again, it looks different to what we saw on the documentation on the GitHub page. So I'm just going to use what we've got here. So we've got this output here, which says full_compose_prompt. And below that, we've got subject underscore only. Now, what I understand that to mean that is if you use the full composed prompt, this top one, then you are going to get all the details from the main prompt that you used here, plus the details from the background details. And if you look over here to the right, you'll get a better idea of what these are. So your main details should be the subject, important features, more details, pose or action. And then in the second box, which I've got I've added military equipment in the background. This is where you put your background details. Now I've used as my basic prompt, and this is very basic, a female combat soldier with blue eyes, red ponytail haircut, smiling, wearing military combat uniform, freckles, detailed face. Just very, very basic stuff. Just wanted to see what this would get. The rest of the details are mostly just drop downs where you will select various details, more to do with photography than anything else. So if I click into one just to show you, let's go to, we have here the filter effects. Hope you can see it okay. You can see my cursor there, the bright red cross. If I left click into that, you'll see here we've now got a whole bunch of filter effects, and we can choose any of these if we want them, or we can choose none if we don't want it at all. Now to come away from that, if you don't want to, if you make your selection or none, once you've done that, to come away from this, you just click on your escape button. Okay, so that's what you want to do, or that's what you need to do rather. This, looking at this node here, it starts off, we've got this modal underscore combos option, and you've got a true or false. What happens if I click on that to go to false? If I go back to these filter effects that we just looked at a second ago, if I click in there again, you'll see you get a different method of, oops, beg your pardon, let me just do that again. You get a different method of selecting and looking at the options on my computer here. This is not working really well for me, so I wouldn't use that. So I'm just going to escape out of that. And on the modal underscore combos, I'm just going to put that back to true, and then that will give us that look. And I think that's a bit easier for me to navigate. So I'm just going to press escape to get rid of that. Okay, so again, so style, we have, I'm on candid here, but if we click into it, we've got a bunch of styles. We can select one or none. Once we've done that, escape, come out away from it, and we just start working our way down through the drop downs. And as you're doing that, you're building up your prompt. Now what you will see, or what you'll notice down here, is you start seeing the build up of the prompt that you're making, which will be a combination of really the main prompt details and the background details, plus the options that you were choosing. Now I have noticed when I've been playing with this yesterday, I've only started looking at this yesterday for the very first time, so I'm no expert on this, which is why I may have got my setup here slightly wrong. However, if I make some changes to my prompt now, or if I was to, that I would not see that generated on my preview here straight away, so I don't really pay much attention to that. However, I did notice that if I change my prompt here in the main prompt or in the background prompt, and then made a change to one of my drop downs, once I've made a new selection, that would then update this. So that update isn't working from the main prompts or from these two prompts here, but just does refresh itself when you select a drop down. I think that's what's happening. So, but the preview itself is not so important. The connections are, so what I've done is for the full compose prompt output, I've connected that to my text prompt, my positive prompt text input, and and I've left it at that. if I had used the subject only instead and gone and taken that to the positive prompt, then I think I would just get what is in this box here, and it would ignore the background details. That's what I think is happening. I hope that makes sense what I'm saying there. So I think the full compose prompt is giving you all the details. The second subject only is giving you just this top box. I think it's something like that, and when I was playing around with it yesterday, that seemed to be the sort of results I was getting. So I'm not using this subject only. I'm just using the full composed, and then I'm using my negative prompt in the normal way. Okay, hope that kind of makes sense. So now that we've done that, let's try and generate an image. Now, I have practiced this before, and I did mention about the CFG 2.6. Now, normally on this model, I would just have a CFG of 2 as my start point. The resulting image that I got, which was as expected, was a female soldier. She was wearing ear studs. Now, I wanted to see whether or not the negative prompt was working, so I put in earrings, ear studs as a negative prompt to try and remove that. Now, initially, it didn't work with the low CFG of 2, and now I had to pump it up to 2.6 to get it to work. But that basically, this mixture that we have now of these prompts and these drop downs should give us now a photorealistic image. So let's cue prompt and see what we get. So we now have our generated image, and I think it has followed the prompt details in the PromptGeek photo prompt node pretty well. So we have, I use the style of candid style. We had the main prompt, which was a combat female soldier, blue eyes, red ponytail hair, smiling, wearing military combat uniform, freckles, detailed face. We've got all that. The framing I selected was upper body. We've got that. The background I selected was, well, that I input was military equipment in the background. We certainly have that. And then just going through the other drop downs here. Lighting, I chose golden hour. Camera angle was at eye level. Camera properties, you have a choice of different cameras here you can choose from. I chose the Hasselblad. Film types, I chose film grain. There's nothing wrong with leaving any of these blank if you don't want any of these selections. Lens, I use the 50mm lens, and I left the next couple of options blank, and that was pretty much it. And so by using the 2.6, I got rid of the ear studs that the young lady was wearing. So that to me hopefully proves that the negative prompt worked. So this is different to the example in the GitHub page. I could be wrong. As I say, I've only been playing with this for a day. However, what I will do, if this is of interest to you, I will put my workflow in my DropBox, and you can pick it up from there if that interests you. So yeah, I think this is quite nice to build a prompt and then have drop downs to particularly photorealistic, which is very much camera, photographer, lighting related. It is quite nice to have a bunch of drop downs to choose from, and possibly maybe in the future there will be updates with even more bits added to it, more filters, more lenses, more camera types, etc., etc. So yeah, I think it's a very nice node. Certainly worth looking at if you're into photorealistic images. And that's about it, I think. So I thank you very much for your time. I hope this hasn't taken too long. I do appreciate it. Have a good day and goodbye.